All right, what's going on, everybody out there in the Living in Arizona audience? Today we are going to talk about the most overrated things about living in Arizona. If you saw our video about the underrated things living in Arizona, you knew this one was coming. This is going to upset some people and it's going to make some people really excited and some people are going to agree. Rarely ever do we go negative on this channel, but this time we're going to go negative and tell you about the most overrated things living in Arizona. Here is the number one pet peeve that I hear most common from people about living in Arizona. It's boring. They think it's boring here. Now, for me, it's not very boring, although sometimes it can get boring. What's boring about living in Arizona? Well, we get a lot of sunny days out here, over 300 days of sunshine. People like dramatic weather. They like 4 seasons. Yes, we get 4 seasons in the high country, but in places like Phoenix and Tucson, the weather is pretty boring. Now, I personally like the monsoons because we get the electric storms, but for the most part, the sunshine day in, day out does get boring for people, and that weather can really wear on them. But here's where they get really frustrated. The summertime, when it gets super hot, over 100 degrees. Last year in 2020, we had 4 months straight where we were over 100 degrees basically the entire time. Could you imagine that? Sometimes it gets longer. We broke the record last year for the most days over 100 degrees. So that right there can be overrated, the weather. Now this here is something that's going to cause some controversy in the comments. The scenery in Arizona. Yes, we have Monument Valley. Yes, we have Sedona. And yes, the Sonoran Desert is beautiful. We also have the Mogollon Rim, the Grand Canyon. But Arizona's a really big state. I mean, it's the size of New England. I mean, it's almost the size of New England. I don't know if it is the size of New England, but it's a large landmass, right? And so when you take into consideration how big the state is and the scenery, it does get a little bit like Groundhog's Day because the desert is very vast and big. And it is, for the most part, when you're living in the valley or in Tucson, it kind of gets old after a while for some people, especially if they're new to the desert. For me, I'm okay with it. But if you're coming from a place where there's the ocean, the sea, the Rocky Mountains, it can get fairly bland out here and become overrated, especially if you're coming from a place where they have big trees, lots of greenery. You're not going to have a lot of greenery in the major metro areas. You know, Flagstaff, maybe, Prescott, sure, you're going to have some greenery, but the vegetation is, for the most part, this like terracotta brown or moreno, as we like to call it. So I would say the landscape can be overrated for a lot of people. And I'm saying this because that's what you guys want to know, right? What can get overrated? What do you need to know when you move to Arizona? All right, so if you live in a big city like Phoenix or Tucson, there's a limited amount of entertainment out here. I mean, we have the Orpheum Theater, we have a zoo, we have some aquarium stuff, we have some museums, but overall, as time goes by, you might find that the entertainment scene in Arizona overall is boring. Yes, we do get festivals, but in particular with the COVID stuff, it's been really boring out here for a lot of people. Now, if you're an outdoors type, it might not be so bad, but if you're someone who's looking for entertainment, festivals, yes, we have them, but it's just not quite on that level that you would have in Chicago or New York or Los Angeles or other places across the country in these big cities and across the state. Some people are going to disagree and say, well, what about the rodeos and whatnot? Well, not everyone's into rodeos. So when people come out here, they always think the grass is greener on the other side, that life's going to be so much better. But I'll tell you right now, I think the entertainment scene in Arizona could use some work and some innovation and creativity. And I think a lot of people would have to agree with that. Obviously, there's going to be people who are not going to agree. But hey, that's one thing that I think is overrated in Arizona, entertainment. So if you live out here in Arizona, you keep hearing all this optimistic, positive news about the job market, the economy in Arizona being so strong. But then when you live here for a long time, you'll realize the job market's not quite as strong as you would think it is, or they say it is for a lot of people, young people trying to find jobs, or people who are just moving here who don't necessarily have a stay-at-home job. They say the economy is really strong, but for most people, I think they end up in these positions where they work at a convenience store like Circle K or a fast food joint, and they're just not getting paid what they think they're worth or what they should be worth to support a family or even themselves. So I would say the job market, even though it gets a pretty good review by national standards, it's really not as good as for the average person as you would think it is. It's good for like a select few, 10%, 20%, and salesmen. Salesmen make a lot of money in Arizona, but outside of that, I would say the job market is certainly overrated. Here's something that is definitely overrated. People think that when they move to Arizona, they're going to get these really good deals on houses. They're going to get these really good deals on food and all this different stuff for cost of living, because that's what the news would tell you, is that Arizona is one of the most affordable big cities in America. And by some metrics, it could really be. But really, the cost of living out here in Arizona is not quite what they crack it up to be. And right now, with the housing market being as hot as it is and the demand so high, what you're paying for a house out here, I think I've seen these kind of prices in places like California, Hawaii, some of the premier destinations, and that's what they're going for. Apartments out here in Phoenix, sometimes going for up to $3,500 for a 3-bedroom for 1 month. That's Hawaii prices, guys. That's San Diego prices. Not quite San Francisco prices, but you get the point. And they're saying that Phoenix has this really good cost of living. People get out here and they're like, wait a second here. I thought you said Phoenix had really good cost of living, or Arizona had good cost of living. No, it's not as cheap as you guys think it is if you're coming from other places. And it keeps going up. All right, so when it comes to things to do with kids, yes, we have lots of lakes, lots of rivers. You could teach your kids to water ski, jet ski. You could teach them to fish, do all that stuff out here. Even play sports. Ball sports are really good, but for the most part, it can get old and the kids can get bored, especially in the summer when it's too hot to go outside. In the winter, yeah, it's going to be okay, I guess, if you're in a rural area, but if you're in a city, I think it gets a little boring for the kids because there's not a lot of amusement parks. I mean, the biggest amusement park we have in Phoenix, for example, is Castles and Coasters, and it's not really that impressive. Cracker Jacks is dilapidated. We do have David Buster's out here, which is good. Fat Cats is also pretty good. But I think that the entertainment for kids really needs some innovation and creativity injected into this society out here in Arizona, because if you notice, a lot of young kids get into drugs and alcohol at a young age in Phoenix and Tucson, and there is a problem with this, and I think it has to do with the lack of activity and entertainment for youngsters out here. So I think that is an overrated thing that needs to be reevaluated by city planners. All right, this is something that some of you guys are going to agree with above all else. At least if you live here, you're probably going to say, yeah, you're kind of right about that. Team sports. We have 4 pro sports teams out here. We have spring training. We even get the NASCAR out here. We get a lot of big attention from pro sports, but nothing really too great. Aside from our golf tournament, Waste Management Open, that one is pretty good. But the Arizona Cardinals never won a Super Bowl. The Phoenix Suns never won an NBA championship. The Coyotes, well, it's hockey in the desert. I mean, Las Vegas can win it, but Phoenix can't. And then you have the Arizona Diamondbacks, who actually did win 1 World Series. Then you have the Arizona State Sun Devils. They don't really do anything when it comes to college baseball. Well, they used to. College basketball, no, they're not so good. They barely make it to the March Madness. You have U of A Wildcats. They used to be really good at basketball, but not so much anymore. Then you have football. The college football doesn't really perform out here. So I would say almost pro sports, college sports, Arizona just doesn't really deliver on a national stage like it could, or like it used to even. We haven't done anything in the new millennium. So the last time the Diamondbacks won the World Series, it was in the 90s. Last time the Suns went to an NBA championship was in the 90s. But the last 20 years have been just a dry spell for Arizona sports, except for in 2008 when Kurt Warner took us to the Super Bowl. But we lost to the Steelers. All right, so this is my number 1 pet peeve personally that I think is overrated, is the driving. Yeah, we have some pretty good freeways out here. We have some pretty good road networks, but the driving in Arizona is terrible. And so I would say that it's overrated completely. When I say it's terrible, what I mean is the drivers are frustrating. I mean, driving in general is frustrating, but in Arizona, you get fast drivers, you get slow drivers, you get snowbirds who get in the fast lane and they go really slow. You get all types of different drivers out here. Sometimes they're drunk, sometimes they're high. You get wrong way drivers. And out here in Arizona, you spend so much time driving, and it's so spread out, this can really become a source of contention and become really frustrating for people. So I would say driving in Arizona is something that is going to irritate you when you come here, and I think it's overrated. So in conclusion, really, the overall quality of life out here in Arizona is something that I would say is overrated for most people when they're coming from out of state. This isn't to bring you guys down, discourage you or anything, because at the end of the day, life is what you make of it, right? But a lot of people coming from out of state, coming from places like Seattle or Boston, where there's lots of big trees, ocean, they move out here after the honeymoon's over. They've been here for maybe a year or two, Chicago even, they'll come here, and then they want to go home and they badmouth Arizona. The reasons that I just outlined in this video are why people come here and then they leave. They say this is why they left Arizona. Me personally, I like Arizona, and I made this list based off of what other people have said they don't like, and I analyzed it and put it into my own words so that people could understand what it is that makes Arizona overrated. Now, this is not gonna be a common thing we're gonna do on this channel where we go full-blown negative like this. We are going to get back into the positives. Our next few videos are going to include things like undervalued Arizona, hidden gems in Arizona. So you're going to want to subscribe as we take you guys back on to the more positive side of living in Arizona. But as you know, it's kiss, kiss, slap, right? Every once in a while, you got to kind of go in you got to take 3 steps forward and then 1 step back every once in a while. This is one of those times where we went backwards for you guys just to keep it real.